Today's webinar should run for about 20 minutes, and we're looking at tips for designing your photo cover, design tips for your photos, using color and the design library, and tips for using fonts. All right, let's get started. They say to never judge a book by its cover, but I'm sure we all want our photo books to look great both inside and out. So we suggest leaving the design of your album cover until last for a couple of reasons. Firstly, you won't know what the overall theme and style of the inside pages are until you've designed them. And secondly, if you add pages as you're working your project, then the width of the book spine will expand and it will shift your cover design. So it's best to add all your inside pages and then design your cover. Remember, keep important elements away from the trim line or they will get cut off. This includes any text as well as important parts of photos like faces. So make sure the text on your spine is completely centered and that there is at least a 2mm gap between the text and the edges of the spine. Otherwise, your text might end up wrapping onto the front or back cover. You can use the zoom tool in the editor to zoom in and make sure you've got enough space on either side of your text, and I will show you how to do that a little bit later on. Some design tips with your cover. Try and choose just one fantastic photo to showcase on your cover for maximum impact. Make a great first impression of what's to come by choosing one of your best photos. Consider using negative space. For example, don't try to use up all of the space on the cover. This can sometimes have an overwhelming effect. So using empty space can be an advantage and allow the viewer to focus on important elements. Consider using borders. This can add a nice touch to your feature photo. And a border is a simple and easy design element that you can carry through, throughout the book. Consider using a unique, catchy font. So while the default Arial font can be a sensible choice, don't be shy to choose something a bit more memorable. We've got a couple of suggestions on this slide that are some great choices for a cover title. Remember, if you are using the download editor, you can use any font that is installed on your computer. Okay, let's move on to design tips for your photos. Probably the best piece of advice we can give you is to use the auto enhance feature. It will give you confidence that your images will be bright enough when printed. So the feature uses a formula to automatically enhance the light and shadow of your photo, making it as suitable as possible for printing. It won't make a really bad photo perfect, but it will adjust the brightness and contrast as much as it can. Another tip that we've mentioned before, keep important elements away from the dashed red line around the page, which is also known as the trim line. So when we trim the edges of your pages, there can potentially be a 2 to 3mm shift, so be sure to keep important elements away from this line. You can use the align and space feature in the editor when highlighting multiple images on the page. So for example, you can align all your photos to the left edge, or you can evenly space them by a predetermined amount. And I'll show you how to do this a bit later in the editor. For some images, you might consider cropping the image to capture just the best part of the photo. So in the example on this slide, we've cropped out some of the background on the left-hand side. This results in the figure coming into the foreground and it makes the photo more centered. I'll show you how to do this as well. Moving on to design tips using color. The editor has a selection of backgrounds and scrapbooking images for you to choose from. One of the easiest ways of injecting some color into your project is selecting a colored background from the library. There's a large number of single colored backgrounds which are guaranteed to brighten up your page. If you want to get really specific on your choice of color, then you can select Other from the drop-down menu on the backgrounds area and open the color control panel. Mac users have access to the handy eyedropper tool, which is demonstrated in this video. The eyedropper will allow you to click on a section of your photo and copy the exact color. It's a handy tool for matching your font text to your photo's color. So you choose a photo from your color from your photo here, and once you've chosen that, you can apply it to your font. On a Windows computer, you can this can be achieved by using the color spectrum selector. A window will open with a full color spectrum to click and save your selected color. I'll demonstrate this in the editor later. Next, let's talk about design tips for your text. One of the most common questions we get asked about text is, how big should my font be? We recommend a minimum of 9 to 12 points for your font. 10 10-point font size is most commonly used in regular books. Personally, I prefer to go a little bit bigger to a 12-point font. For headers, you can go much larger than that, but for paragraphs of text, try and stick to between 9 and 12-point font. It does also depend what font you use. So some fonts, the point size will be larger than others. If you're not sure what size to use, you can actually type some text into Word and print it out, and whatever size it prints in Word, it will also print in our editor as well and in your photo book. For larger paragraphs of text, we suggest using a serif or sans serif font option. These two styles of fonts are widely recognized as being the most legible. A serif is the technical term given to the stylized ends of a letter. They almost look like little feet. And sans serif is the technical term meaning no serifs are present. Serif fonts are more traditional and decorative, whereas sans serif fonts are more modern and embrace simplicity. An issue we see quite commonly is dark text placed on a dark background. You can make sure your text is legible by lightening the color of your text, or place a clear shape behind the text. I'll demonstrate this a bit later for you. In fact, I'll do it now. So let's have a look in the editor how these, some of these things that we've just talked about. So first of all, I've just opened up a brand new project. It is an 11 by 8.5 landscape photo cover, which is the most common book size that people do. And I've just got a blank page in front of me. I've added some photos, and I just want to show you firstly how to do your photo cover. So let's add a photo first off. We've got a nice photo here of Melbourne, which I'm just going to drag onto the page. So what we can do is we could make this photo take up the entire front cover, like so, just by dragging the edges there. Looks great. However, a couple of things. One, part of my photo is cropped off, and I'll show you how you can tell that. If you double click on the photo, that's my cropping screen. I can see I've lost quite a bit on the right. And second of all, look, it is taking up, it is quite in your face. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But the other option, as I talked about earlier, was having some negative space on the page. So just some plain color. If I just move this photo up a bit, firstly, it now means it's more of a landscape shot. So if I double click on it, I'm not losing any of my picture anymore. And I've got room down here if I want to put a title. So let's just say we'll get it. So to add a text box, click on this add text box button here. We'll change the size a little bit so we can just, I'm going to put in Melbourne landscapes, we'll call it. So I'm just going to, so to type in some text, you double click on the text box. We'll type in Melbourne landscapes. Now it's a bit small, so if you want to highlight all your text, just drag your mouse from one end of the text to the other to highlight it all. First of all, we can make it bigger. Oh, so, well, actually, sorry, we'll choose a font. So here are our fonts on the right-hand side. If I click on the font list, it shows me all the different fonts that I can choose from, and there's heaps here. One that I saw earlier in my list, which I quite liked, was this Sego. I'm not even sure how you say that. There's probably the print one is quite nice. Let's choose that. And it's very small, so we want to make it bigger. For a front cover, probably around a 36-point font's nice. You could go a little bit bigger if you wanted to, but I'm quite happy with that. We'll just drag that down a little bit just to center it there. So there we go. I've got that. I can change the color of my font. So again, double click into it, highlight your text, and on the right hand side again, we've got our colors. So if I want to make it any of these colors, I can, or I can choose other. And this is where we talked about choosing any color from the color spectrum. Now, unfortunately on a PC or Windows computer, you can't use that eyedropper. That's only a Mac function. So we can define custom colors. I might choose a nice blue color for the cover. So what I do is click on roughly the sort of color I want. So I've got the blue here. I can then change, I can make it darker, or by moving this little button here around the colors, I can sort of hone in on what color I want. If I know the exact hue, saturation, and illumination for that color, I can type them in. And you can use this scale on the right to make it lighter or darker as well. So let's just run with that for now. Click Add to Custom Color, and it puts it in this little box here. So so I can use it again on other pages. The only thing is it won't remember that color if I close our editor and come back. So if you want an exact color throughout the book and you're not working on it all at once, maybe take a screenshot of this page so you know, and you can type in those figures again. Click OK, and we've got a new color for my text. I can also look at changing the background. So in our backgrounds, we have quite a lot of plain colors, as I mentioned before. Just trying to think what might look nice. Could go with something like that, or a bluey sort of color, whatever you feel you like, or you could just leave it white. You can right click and say remove background, leave it white. White's nice as well. So there's a few options for the cover. The other thing which I talked about was auto enhancing your photo, something very important to do. So if you click on your photo, click on this second button at the top on the right that looks like two arrows, and then click auto enhance. And look, it's brightened up my photo quite considerably. Next, let's look at putting text on the spine. So you'll see there is already a text box on the spine for you, which actually I'd already typed into, so I'm just going to get rid of that. So here's my text box. All I have to do is double click on it, enter my text, Melbourne landscapes. I can use the same font if I want from before. So let's change the font to what I had. Bear with me and I'll find it. There it is. It was there's lots of them. I think, anyway, I can't even remember what I used. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Didn't realize how many there were. Let's just go with that one, I think it was. And I can also change the color of the font. If I want it to be the same as what I had before, I can click on that, the same font as the rest of the page. Now you can see it's not really aligned on the spine. So to zoom in and make sure it's 100% aligned, click on the View menu, Maximum Zoom, and we'll just scroll across till we get to the spine and scroll down a bit. And it is a little bit to the left, so let's just move it to the right a bit. I think that's pretty good and centered. Maybe it's a little bit far to the right, so we'll just move it to the left. To align it, it's good to use your arrows on your keyboard, because that will give you a much finer aligning tool there. And you've got a couple of mils on either side of the spine, so that's going to look fine. click on View and Minimum Zoom to go back to seeing the book on its own. So there you go. It's a nice simple cover. All right, let's have a quick look at some of the other things we talked about. So the trim line, and I didn't mention this with the cover, but make sure that your image is either well past your trim line. Actually, I was going to show you another option. So here we've got the trim, we've got the photo past the trim line. Another option would be to put a border around your photo. So we might just put it in here a little bit smaller. And add a border. So here on the right hand side under the pencil and paper, you can click on border. At the moment it's black. I'm going to make it white and I'm going to make it a bit thicker. Just change the size with this slider to make the background thicker and the border thicker, sorry, and you can't see it because we've got a white background. Let's just change the background color and now you can see my white border. So look, I don't mind how this looks. I'm not 100% happy with it. You can play around and what looks good to you, go with it because you're the one who's making the book. So that's how you can add a border. Let's go on to another page and we'll show you some other features. So again, trim line, make sure that photos are either well inside the trim line or outside. If I pop a photo on the trim line, the editor has a feature that it actually will pop it to the blue line to make sure that it's spread to the edge of the page. Or if I put it too close to the trim line inside, it will actually move it in to make sure it's not going to get trimmed off. That's trim lines. Okay, aligning and spacing, let's talk about that. So let's say I've got 3 photos on my page and we want to align them vertically. So the editor has a really good aligning tool where I start moving a photo, it will tell me when it's aligned. See how it's got green lines on the left, right, and center? That tells me those photos are now aligned perfectly vertically. And I can do the same with this. If I'm not sure, there is another way to do it if you don't want to do it that way. Click on one of the photos, hold down the Shift key while clicking on the other 2 photos and it highlights all 3 of them. You can let go of Shift, right click on one of the photos and choose Align Space, and then if you want them aligned at the left edge, click on Align Left and it makes sure that they're all aligned. You can see I've got a bigger space between these 2 pictures and these 2. So again, right click, Align Space, and then Space Items. We are aligning them vertically, so we tick vertical, and you can put a millimeter number in here. So 10 millimeters will be 1 centimeter between each photo, and that sounds good to me, so I'll click OK. If that's too close or too far, you can do that same process again to align them. And there you go, you can see they're perfectly aligned on the page. Cropping photos. So here's a good example. I've got a photo of this gentleman on his, what do we call it, vehicle. It's a little bit too much background. I want to zoom in on him. Double click on the photo and I can zoom in and I can center him if I want. I can do whatever I like, have him a little bit to the left, and there he is, much closer. So that's a nice thing to do. All right, we have talked about changing the background color. Finally, let's talk a little bit more about fonts and making sure that your font is legible. So with our gentleman here, we do want to add a caption. I'm going to add a text box. And I'm just going to say delivery bike. You can't read that very well. Let's say I wanted to put it in the top right of the photo. Again, it's hard to read because it's black on a sort of photo background. So if I drag my mouse over it to highlight the text, one option is I could change it to a white font so that it's more readable. That's quite good now. Even more, if I want to highlight it even more, I can actually, sorry, click off the text box and then just click once on it so that it's got blue dots around the edges, and click on this pencil and paper on the right of your screen, and you can choose a color. This is the color of the text box rather than the text. So if I want it to be white, and I want it to be, because you can't see my text now, we want it to be a bit more transparent. So we can use this opacity feature here to make the box transparent. And then I just want to reshape my box so that it doesn't look silly and that you can read your text, but I don't want it to be too big, that box. Right, that looks a bit better. And we can double click on the text to center it using this centering at the bottom right of the screen, and maybe center it in on the background. I'm not sure if the white looks so good on the white. Let's try changing it to black again and see if that looks better. That's an option. You could do that. Or you could choose a different color, but that's just one idea that can work well. If you don't like it there, you might put it down here, or there's lots of different ways you can do it. Okay, I think that's pretty much all we have time for today. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions due to some technical issues. So if you do have any queries, I'll give you our details in a moment and you can send them through to us, or you can give us a call. Just a quick recap. So experiment with the different photo cover designs. There's lots of different ways to do it. Don't be afraid to try new fonts. Don't forget the auto enhance feature, which will improve your images if they're not perfect, of course. Consider cropping some of your photos for a better balance or to focus on a certain image. Use colors to enhance the design of your page, and make sure that your text is legible. All right, don't forget you are welcome to call our customer service team. So if any of this is not clear and you have any questions, we're here Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, and our number is 1300 553 448. You can also reach us by email, which is service@albumworks.com.au, or you can talk to us via live chat from our website. You can head to our website at www.albumworks.com.au to view our current bonus discount promotion, which runs until 23rd September. If you still haven't bought Dad a present for Father's Day, you can purchase a gift voucher at 30% off, but just remember it can't be used together with another promotion. You can head to our YouTube channel to view past webinars. Just do a Google search and type in Albumworks YouTube and they'll pop up. Our production team are still here making your photo products. Check our website for information about slight delivery delays. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Looking forward to having you here again at our next webinar. And in the meantime, have fun creating your photo books. Thank you. Bye.